Apologies, hit the wrong button there.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Hector Rodriguez. My pronouns are him. My position with BPS is the District Liaison Planner for East Portland, but with this project, I'm serving as the project manager. Here you will see Bill, Julie, Todd, and Rachel. They're part of this project as a partnership, and I'm also part of the team that we are moving forward with that project. I want to thank you for taking time to join us. Um, Why we don't do a quick introduction of the theme, and we can start with the presentation so we can keep things moving forward and have enough time for questions. So the Affordable Housing Opportunity Project, Bill Cunningham is our senior planner, so he's like our brain power for this project. Rachel Hoy is the supervisor planner. She's also here present, and myself. Bill, next. So for today's agenda, we want to do an overview of the project, what is the project is about, how the sites were selected and prioritized. We're going to have some examples of the zoning changes that we're proposing, and we're going to have time for questions and answers. So let's start with what is AHOP. So AHOP is for Affordable Housing Opportunity Project. And this is one of the strategy that came out from the housing production strategy that the city adopted for rezoning sites for affordable housing. The city have done previous exports similar to this in the past, but they were called expanding opportunity for affordable housing. And we have two rounds of this. Right now, the difference with the AHOP is that we're gonna take a focus more on properties that are owned by nonprofit and public agencies. And in the past, the expanding opportunity for affordable housing were more focused on faith-based organizations. With this project, we want to do is like collaborating with nonprofits that own property and serve as nonprofits. And we want to make sure that we are accommodating the zoning so that way we can develop more affordable housing and to have more options and preserve affordable housing that is currently happening. We also gonna have non-conforming situation for those properties that are serving as affordable housing right now or presenting service, but the zoning right now this is not conforming. So why we're doing AHUB? So we want to support affordable housing development in Portland. We want to help nonprofit housing providers to develop and move forward with properties that they already own, but addressing some of the zoning constraints. We are focusing in areas that provide services to affordable housing, not only land, but also have access to transit services and community infrastructure that align with the community needs. We are going to preserve existing affordable housing by providing a zoning that go more with the conforming services that they're providing. And we're going to have more examples that you can see with the map and what this really means. So for the scoping of this project, we started in spring to 2024 when we introduced this project to the Housing Oregon, and we did a citywide call for providers, organizations that were nonprofit who already own land, providing affordable housing, and they're looking to increase their capacity or develop some sites, but the zoning is not right there to make the project feasible. We follow up with these organizations. We work with them really closely to understand what were their needs, and that's how we came out with the list of properties. The site selection and prioritization is we went through each site to make sure that the zoning was feasible and aligned with the affordable housing goals. Right now, we have the 17 property sites. Again, we are in a discussion draft phase. So this is right now the 17 properties that we're proposing. So the site selection and how we prioritize this criteria. Again, we wanted to make sure that the site was owned by a nonprofit or a public agency, that the location was near a corridor or a neighborhood center with services as transit, that the zoning nearby was also considered to be appropriate in the neighborhood, that the plan aligns with the comprehensive plans and readiness. We wanted to make sure that we are working with near to mid-term development potential and preserving current housing. So here's a citywide map. You can also find that in the discussion draft. You can see more in detail. But we divided the city by the district councils. And here you can see which property have like owned by nonprofit, public agency, or have a non-conforming situationship. Next. So why we here right now is because we have the discussion draft. And in the discussion draft, what this means is part of the engagement process. So we have a website. We also are providing updates to the BPS news. We send out a courtesy mailing to all the neighbors around the area for 400 feet around the sites. We also have an online map. This is an interactive application where you can leave comments and see where the sites are located. We hosted 2 info sessions, including this one, and we're also doing presentations to the neighborhood and coalition group on request. We want to make sure that we're collecting the public input and comment so we can move forward for the proposed draft to have this on consideration. Next. So in the discussion draft, if you want to go more in detail, you can find these tables. In this table, you can see what are the current zoning of the property, the ownership, what is the proposed zoning, and in the note is a little bit of like the reasoning behind them. You can see they have an ID number, so that way you can actually see the property name with the maps. It's a easier way to navigate it to the discussion draft, and I hope like everyone, and I encourage you that have access to the document so you can see a little bit more in detail what we're explaining here. Next. So this is the continuation of the tables. As you can see, we divided it by what is a public agency ownership, what are the non-conforming situations, and the nonprofit ownerships. Next one. So right now, Bill gonna jump in with some of the samples that we have for the site and the proposing changes that we are doing. So we're gonna continue with these sites. And again, we're gonna have time at the end to go through some question and get in more in detail in any site that you might be interested in.
Thanks, Hector. And just want to make sure people are hearing me okay. Before we launch into just looking at some of the specific properties, wanted to make sure people have some sense of the structure of our zones. And as you look through our discussion draft, you'll see these abbreviations, and it looks very mysterious, but RM stands for residential multi-dwelling. Basically, the RM zones are our multifamily or multi-dwelling zones. RM1, it's the small numbers are basically the smaller scale zones, and it goes up the scale in terms of the building height, etc. RM1 is intended to be a fairly low-rise zone that's 2 to 3 stories. A lot of the proposed zone changes that go to RM2, which is more of a 3 to 4 story zone, which we often apply along our transit corridors or in and around our neighborhood centers. We also have RM3 and RM4 zoning, which are the larger scale multifamily zones. For the most part, the rezones are about matching zoning to large buildings that are already there. So it's not so much about new development for those zones, it's about applying matching zoning to the existing large scale buildings. And then the CM zones stand for commercial mixed use. And there are fewer of these, although there are some. The medium scale zone is CM2. It's often 3 to 4 stories. CM3 is somewhat larger scale, sometimes 5 to 6 stories. And the advantage of the commercial mixed use zones for affordable housing development is they allow residential, but they also allow things like ground floor commercial uses or community services. So sometimes it could be useful for a housing provider to have both housing and services in the same building. And that's why you sometimes see that zone applied. I'm going to go through just a set of examples of the proposed zone changes, and there'll be time at the end for you to raise questions about properties that are not included in this set of examples. So you really just see these as examples of the types of zone changes that the properties, or I'm sorry, that the project is proposing. The first is a set of properties that are owned by nonprofit housing providers. And these ones are really about expanding opportunities for affordable housing, sometimes adding additional housing on sites that already have affordable housing, or sometimes supporting a new development in the future. The first example we have is on, we're calling the Prescott property. It's on Northeast Prescott in the Cully neighborhood. This property is owned by Habitat for Humanity. It's in District 2. It's a little bit less than an acre. It's very close to the Cully neighborhood center within the Cully neighborhood. And this property currently has R7 zoning, which is generally a single dwelling zone, but it also allows things like cottage clusters and townhouses. But the proposal is to change the zoning to RM1, which is the smallest scale multi-dwelling zone. RM1 is also the zoning that applies to some adjacent properties. And the zone change would facilitate the ability for Habitat to develop affordable ownership townhomes. There's some greater restrictions in the R7 zone. This zone is intended to be appropriate close to services such as what you have here by the Cully Neighborhood Center and along corridors such as corridors such as Prescott. A second example is DeMar Downs. This is in District 1 in Outer East Portland. The property owner is Home Forward. And this is on Southeast 148th, just south of Division, very close to a Fred Meyer, adjacent to a property that's been acquired for a park. There's a community garden there. This is a little bit over an acre and a half. And this property has some existing housing. They're very low-rise, one-story buildings built in 1972. And the rezone from RM1 to RM2 would allow, when future redevelopment happens, it would allow for additional affordable housing to be included on the property. And this is in alignment with policies we have for locating housing, especially affordable housing close to services. It's also near the Division FX line, relatively high amenity for East Portland, and aligns with some of the corridor zoning we have nearby. Another example is Camellia Court, which is in North Portland in District 2. This is also owned by Home Forward. It's on North Lombard Street, a little bit less than a third of an acre. Again, right along the Lombard Civic Corridor in the Kenton neighborhood. And if you look at the map, it's adjacent to commercial mixed use or CM2 zoning. It has RM2 zoning. And the rezone to CM2 would allow in the future for services to be included along with housing on that property. And again, it would align with goals for having a mixed use set of things along that civic corridor. And it would align with the locational criteria we had for housing close to services. Lombard is intended to be a very transit supportive, pedestrian friendly zone or area with a mix of uses. And again, the zoning does reflect some of the zoning that's already there along the corridor. Another property is the Canton Grill property. It's in District 1 at the very edge of District 3. It's on Southeast 82nd, just south of Division, very close to the corner where PCC Southeast is located. Apano owns this property. It's just over an acre. It's located within the J District Neighborhood Center and along, of course, 82nd. And both 82nd and the J District are places intended to be supported as a very mixed use area that serves as a hub for services for the surrounding area. Apano had been doing quite a bit of visioning for this property, and amongst the concepts for the property are upper level affordable housing, but also looking at ground floor commercial and community spaces. And also there are ideas for ground floor courtyard space. And the existing CM2 zone is limited to 4 stories, which is pretty constraining when you're trying to do all those things on that relatively small property. The CM3 zone would provide more flexibility for the height of the building to accommodate all those uses. And again, the zone change would fit in with our policies for major corridors such as 82nd and neighborhood centers. Along with the rezone to CM3 would come the design overlay. You see it there as the D. We always apply that to our larger scale zones, and that would provide a higher level of design scrutiny for that larger scale development. Some other examples are for the public agency properties, and I'll launch right into this. Actually, all the publicly owned properties are in zones that right now do not allow new housing. The first example is located in the Brooklyn neighborhood in District 3 at the intersection of Southeast Holgate and 17th. And there's an orange line light rail station right there at that corner. The current zoning, as I mentioned, is an employment zone, EG1, which prohibits new housing. TriMet is interested in opening up that property and another one along 17th to affordable housing. And this property is immediately adjacent to residential. So it's definitely has that context of a place where people live. It's across the street from the TriMet bus garage on 17th. So it's a bit of a transition zone between the industrial and residential neighborhoods. The idea with going to the mixed-use CM2 zone is it would allow both residential, but also ground floor commercial or community services that would provide a good interface with what's happening across the street and the light rail line. And it does align with our policies for transit-oriented development around light rail stations. And it's consistent with our locational criteria for the CM2 zone within areas that have good transit access. And light rail is about the best access we have. Another example is the Sears Armory site. This is in District 4 in Southwest. It's in the Multnomah neighborhood, right adjacent to the Multnomah Village Neighborhood Center. The property is owned by the city of Portland. It's a little bit over 3.5 acres. Currently, it is the location of the Multnomah Safe Rest Village. The logic with the rezone is the current zone, EG2, is generally intended for employment, office, light industrial, community services as well, but it prohibits new residential development. And there are 2 objectives for the rezone to CM2, it's a commercial mixed use 2. One is to allow in the long term a future evolution into permanent housing, including affordable housing. There are no plans currently to redevelop the property. It is retaining its use right now as a safe rest village. And the rezone would not change the day-to-day management and operations of that safe rest village. One thing it would do is that it would facilitate continuing a safe rest village once the Portland's housing emergency ordinance, which enabled that safe rest village, lapses. The reason is because the current EG2 zone has shelters, outdoor shelters as a conditional use, which requires a lengthy review and a costly review procedure. And the CM2 zone provides more flexibility for safe rest villages and outdoor shelters with a less costly review procedure. And though I know there are likely to be questions about this, we have some additional material that compares the 2 zones. One thing I should mention is the CM2 zone allows up to 4 stories, which is the same height that's allowed in the adjacent RM2 zones. EG2 actually has no height limit. So the new proposed zone would be in alignment with the existing scale that's allowed in the adjacent RM2 zoning. And allowing for future affordable housing there and services also aligns with our policy goals for neighborhood corridors such as Multnomah Boulevard, which are intended to be the setting for housing and services. Going to move on to the next one. The last 2 examples are non-conforming situations, I think we have about 5 of them. So of the 17 sites, they're not all about new development. Some are about really preserving existing housing and services we have. One example is Holgate House. This is right at the edge of District 4 and 3 on Southeast Chavez at the intersection with Holgate. It's right next to a Trader Joe's, for those of you who know the area. This property is owned by Home Forward. It's just about a little bit over an acre. It is in the Reed neighborhood, and Chavez is designated as a civic corridor, which is intended to be a place that supports a mix of uses, including compact housing and affordable housing. What's there now is an existing, fairly large-scale 5-story building. The existing zoning RM2 is really intended more for 3 to 4-story buildings. Having a zone that's smaller in scale than what's there makes it somewhat difficult to make additions to the property or changes. So rezoning to RM3 would better reflect what's already there and accommodate modification improvements to that property. And it would be consistent with our locational criteria for the RM3 zone along major corridors like Chavez. And again, it would reinforce also policy for locating housing near services. And along with the RM3 zone would come the design overlay zone, as it does with the larger scale zones. Another property is the Shrunk Riverview Tower. This is in the St. John's Town Center in District 2 in North Portland. This also is owned by Home Forward. 0.69 acres. It's also another property. It's not really about new development. It's entirely about enabling and facilitating the continuation of what's there, which is an 11-story building. It's in the RM2 zone, however, which is generally intended for, again, 3 to 4-story development. And again, that current zoning makes it difficult to do any additions or modifications to that 11-story building. So RM4 would better enable the continuation and upgrades to that building. And it does fit and be in alignment with policies we have for our centers, such as the St. John's Town Center, in terms of being appropriate places for higher density housing, and again, especially affordable housing close to the center services. Wanted to highlight one thing, a key way we hope to hear from you through is by submitting your comments via the Map app. And the Map app address is here. And Hector, if you or someone could enter the Map app address into the chat, that would be great. The Map app is a good way to get into the habit of providing comments, because once this actually becomes a formal proposal and is going to Planning Commission and City Council, testimony is most frequently received now through the Map app. So again, encourage you to share your thoughts. And we're interested in all thoughts, whether it's concerns or support for what's proposed, what have you. And again, I wanted to highlight something. This is one small piece of the puzzle in terms of addressing Portland's affordable housing needs. It's really trying to make the best use of properties that are already in ownership by nonprofit affordable housing providers and public agencies. So on those sites, we can better accommodate additional affordable housing. So what you do with the Map app is you can, if you look at the upper left, there's a field where you can enter your address. And enter your address, it'll zoom into where your property is or your home, and you will see what zone changes are being considered for the area, and those are always colored. And here's an example at 17th and Holgate. Click that property to find out what's proposed. It'll take you to a field like this. So on the right side, you'll see that it has an existing base zone of general employment and a proposed base zone. And click those zones, typically shown in blue where the change is happening, and it will show you what each of those zones is about. Clicking the commercial mixed use zone 2 that's proposed will get you to a short description of what that zone is about. It'll show you the uses allowed, the general scale, where it's typically applied, some of the basic development standards. And a key thing to be aware of is you have that little blue button in the upper right that says comment. click that, and if you're on a property, one of the proposed zone changes properties, it will attach that comment to that zone change property. Clicking that will take you to information fields for you, so we know who's commenting, where you live, and to the right are fields for you to enter your comments and to submit those. Just very briefly about next steps. The discussion draft comment period is lasting through July 3rd to just before the 4th of July. So you have a couple more weeks to provide comments. After July 3rd, staff will be taking what we heard from the community and working to refine the draft proposals based on that input. And by late July, our intention is to release a proposed draft that reflects those changes. And the proposed draft is the version of the plan or the project, the proposed zone changes that's going to be considered by the Planning Commission. And we have a Planning Commission hearing scheduled right now for August 26th. And this will be an opportunity for you to provide public testimony during the hearing on that day. And you can also, again, provide testimony by the MAP app or also by other means as well. And the goal of the Planning Commission hearing is that will inform the Planning Commission as they eventually vote on the project and forward a recommended draft to City Council. We do not yet have a date for City Council's review of the proposals. It'll likely be probably at earliest in late fall, but more likely the winter of 2025 to 2026. And they will have a public hearing on the recommended draft before voting on whether to adopt the zone changes. So there are multiple places to provide input. And also wanted to mention that Hector had mentioned we had sent notices to property owners within 400 feet of each of the zone change properties. And we'll be doing that again in the lead up to the Planning Commission hearing. And there is also a place on the project website where you can sign up for project notification. So you could be sure to be kept updated as to when these hearings are happening and when there are opportunities for you to provide feedback. So that is it for the presentation, but we are definitely interested in your thoughts as to, are there other questions you have? Are there other properties we didn't include in the examples you wanted to hear more about? And I'm sorry, I didn't intend to go there. Just a moment. And also some additional slides related to the Multnomah Safe Rest Village, if there are questions about that one.